What is going on, everybody? Welcome on, excuse me. Whoa, hey, hello. Welcome on into Bleacher Report Live. And it is time to take a look at the Eagles over-under win total set by DraftKings. And right now, it's sitting at 10.5. But there's way more to the conversation than just where do the Eagles land, because where are the Cowboys? Where are the Washington Commanders? Where are the New York Giants? And where are they in comparison to some of the other teams in the NFC that are projected to be at the top, meaning the 49ers, the Detroit Lions, and is there somehow a surprise squad out there? It's really less about the AFC teams. I don't really care about the Ravens or the Chiefs, but at the end of the day, there doesn't seem to be a wide margin surrounding some of these squads, and it tells you that they are not predicting a huge runaway squad. Sometimes in the NBA or in the NHL or even in Major League Baseball, there's a team that stretches their way so far ahead of every other squad that at some point you realize that that team's not going to lose. That team is the champion. That's the favorite, and it's not even close. Now, you can make the argument that, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs fall into that category, but not from a regular season level. That's more just when the postseason comes around, you're afraid of Pat Mahomes, which I thought this Eagles team could be that, where the regular season is what it is. Maybe they win 12 games or so, but it's about, when it's cold, when it's January, when it's the insane time of the year, you don't want to see Jalen Hurts. You don't want to see A.J. Brown. You don't want to see Hassan Reddick. You don't want to see Josh Sweat, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, because they are going to abuse you. That's what I thought it would be, and it wasn't. I was completely wrong. It was the case for Kansas City, and to a degree, it was the case for San Francisco as well, because remember, they went through a little time of discomfort, but as Jeffrey Lurie stated yesterday when he spoke to the world and to the media and had a state of address, you're going to go through that, but you have to have the ability to bounce back. The greatest teams in the entire league last season went through a very difficult time. But by the time playoffs started, they were out of that rut. So how can the Eagles internally find ways when you lose 3 of 5 games, when you go through a tough loss at home that you should beat that opponent? You're playing what squad at the link and you fall and you lose by 7? You lose by double digits? That's an embarrassment. And now your following week, you're going on the road to face a very good opponent. So everyone's down in the dumps. How can you have an explosive win to shut everybody up? I mean, those are the type of questions you need to ask internally when assessing what this football team is. So let's take a look here at the win total set for this team and with some of the others around the league. But I asked the question in the Bleacher Report chat, over under 10.5 wins for your Eagles. I will say over. I do think that they can get to the over point. Kansas City's at 11-5 leading the way. San Francisco and Baltimore are also at 11-5. Now, the Eagles come in at 10.5. I don't hate the number. I would pound the over if I was a betting man, and of course I am a betting man, so I will be pounding the over. Even last year, which was one of the most historic losses we've ever seen, they still would have been able to get that number, so it just shows you that this team is in a position where even if they don't live up to the standard that we like, and even if we put expectations for them to go to a Super Bowl and be a dominating team, and then they clearly don't live up to their end of the bargain, and they underachieve massively, they could still accidentally win a lot of regular season wins, and Howie Roseman is not sleeping, okay? This dude's on the prowl, nonstop. Now, you better keep Hassan Reddick. Listen to me right now. You better find a way to keep Hassan Reddick and get him back here, because the addition of Bryce Huff and the loss of Hassan Reddick does not really improve your ability to get to the quarterback. You need Hassan, Josh Sweat, and Bryce Huff, and Brandon Graham, and Nolan Smith to make a huge leap from his rookie year to his sophomore campaign, All of that needs to be in play for them to reach the level of consistency and dominance that we need out of our defensive ends and our pass rushers and the whole shebang. So if we want to take a look at how do you get the over of this 10.5, that's where you need to look. But there's one team that stands out insanely to me, and they did make a lot of moves this offseason, but in no way, shape, or form do I think they need to be in the same conversation as the Eagles, the Dolphins, the Green Bay Packers that are sitting at 10.5, the Cincinnati Bengals that are sitting at 10.5, the Lions that are sitting at 10.5. You ready for this? It's a joke. The Atlanta Falcons. Come on, man. The Atlanta Falcons, in what universe? What? The quarterback? I mean, you're telling me the quarterback, the 10.5. I mean, look, here's what's in play. The division. So because you look at the division, it's not as if it's a juggernaut. It's not as if there's a bunch of teams that are throwing legitimate haymakers left and right. I mean, is that the way that they are potentially looking at this thing when you look at some of the teams in that division? I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing here because you don't have to play the Dallas Cowboys. You don't have to play a team like the Buffalo Bills. You don't have to play teams that are very scary. I'm just throwing things out there. I don't know. I'm just looking for the idea and the belief and the logic behind putting the Atlanta Falcons that high up there. It seems like a lot of you in the chat seem that they can hit the over. CMart14 says over. Maximus says 13-4. Sensi, I apologize if I'm not pronouncing all of these names correctly in the chat, but they have it at 14-3. Now, they do also bring up that there needs to be help in the secondary, whether you draft somebody or you get creative and get help in the secondary, because Bradbury was awful last season, and maybe they drafted in the first round. Maybe Cooper DeJean is a name that you look for, and I don't know exactly where he fits in the NFL, whether it's at corner, whether it's at safety, but the ability to help out C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Darius Slay, because you also need help in the slot too, because Avonte Maddox is no longer here, and he was never healthy to begin with. So who can you slot in? Jeffrey Lurie, once again, going back to what he just most recently stated, Isaiah Rodgers is definitely in their crosshairs. He was in this organization after the whole situation that happened in Indianapolis. So I know he hasn't played football for a little bit of time due to the gambling issue, but now he is here. And if Bradbury is going to hurt your football team and not help out at all, then maybe you have the answer that we're looking for already in the NovaCare complex that could play opposite of Darius Slay and help you reach your end goal, which is the over 10.5. The Giants are actually below the Commanders. Below the Commanders at 6.5. Washington at 7.5. They have Dallas on the same exact timeline here, or not timeline, but projecting line as the Eagles at 10.5. And, look, there's many different ways to look at this, right? Because regular season success is not the same as postseason success. And the Dallas Cowboys do find ways to win a lot. Now, there's added pressure. We don't know exactly where Jerry Jones stands with Dak Prescott. Is he going to get a contract extension? Is he not going to get a contract extension? Is the future there? Is Mike McCarthy on the hot seat if they don't win X amount of games? I mean, the pressure for some of these guys, it's your NFL life is on the line, essentially. Now, Dak Prescott will get another opportunity elsewhere. I don't know exactly where Mike McCarthy would fall and all, but as a core, as a unit right now in Dallas, the added pressure, while there's pressure here, no doubt about it, Howie better do well, Nick Sirianni better do well, and he was lucky to survive last season, and he's able to get back here and have Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio underneath of his belt here. So he does have some help and some veteran experience and some guys to lean on, and he's able to take a step back and allow Kellen Moore to operate the offense he wants to do. So he has help, and that's big. And yeah, I mean, yes, I would say Nick Sirianni is coaching for his job as well. But the pressure from overhead towards the entire group of Dallas, I think, is significantly more intense than where we are right now with the Eagles. There's way more organizational questions about them than there are the Eagles, even though we're not satisfied with how they left things off last season. So I don't know if they have the same level of regular season success, but if they do, it wouldn't surprise surprise me, and their win total could be decent, but it comes down to they won't win in the playoffs. It's almost the opposite of how I view Kansas City. Kansas City could win 9 games in the regular season. I don't project that to happen, but let's say they win 9 games. They could take off and destroy teams left and right to get to the Super Bowl and win another Lombardi trophy. Now Andy Reid becomes even that much more important to the history of the league as he just puts those accolades and puts all those trophies on his shelf and stares at them nonstop. And that's what it is. So the Cowboys could win a bunch of games in the regular season, but the second the postseason comes, I don't believe in them. And the Eagles somehow fall in the middle of that. I don't have the same level of faith as I do as the Kansas City Chiefs with the Eagles in the playoffs, but I also think that if they won 10 games and the under actually hit, that they could win in the playoffs. If they won 9 games and squeezed into the playoffs, they could win a big game on the road and advance, where I don't feel that way with Dallas. So it puts you in an awkward spot because we know what the end goal is here. We understand how we react week to week and still have the long-term idea of we need to get another Super Bowl and Howie needs to get another one. And yeah, I mean, it always goes back to what I saw when Howie Roseman spoke for the first time after they lost to Kansas City with the double-digit lead, thinking that they could win another Super Bowl and knowing that it got ripped right out of their hands. He was devastated, more devastated than I've ever seen Howie Roseman. And remember, there was a time where my man lost his job and got thrown away into a random-ass room at the NovaCare complex and was asked to don't even show your face. Chip Kelly has the power, my friend. You lost all of your duties. Get the hell out of here. That was once said to Howie, and I saw him more hurt during the time of losing that Super Bowl. That fire, all right, that anticipation of getting another one, that parade, everyone speaking his praise and saying it loudly that this guy is a magician and knows how to go to work with the salary cap. And real quickly, Jeff McClain of the Philadelphia Inquirer actually just released a piece this morning about how the Eagles are losing someone very important to Howie and very, very detailed with a lot of this cap space and does a lot of good stuff behind the scenes. So there's been a lot of guys that have been poached from the Eagles front office over the years, and that's what happens when you have the sustained success that people want to build their organization like you. They know Howie Roseman does some great things. Joe Douglas with the New York Jets. I mean, the list goes on with people that get plucked. That's the nature of the business, but this guy's been around for 10, 11, 12 years, and I would imagine that Howie has soaked up all the information and been able to sort of embrace it, soak it in so he can do it himself and have someone else slide into the person's role who left, and we'll see how it all shakes up, but that's definitely an important thing to monitor, no doubt about it. So it looks like more people are chiming in on the chat. We have under coming in. Wendell thinks that it's an over. More overs than under. A 12-win team is where we're looking at for Michael, who chats in as well. So I appreciate all of your support and everybody giving their opinions on things. Here's a question from BMV. Is Isaiah Rodgers better than Bradbury? Do we think that? Yeah, I think so. And I don't think that Bradbury is as bad as he was last year. I don't think he's as good as he was the year that they went to the Super Bowl. I remember talking to Jeff Mosher of Inside the Birds on my radio show, and I was asking because they just acquired C.J. Gardner-Johnson again at the time. So I asked about the reasons maybe he was able to grab as many interceptions as he did was because of the success of your front, and you were getting 70 sacks. So when you get that much pressure on the quarterback, quarterbacks are going to try and throw the ball up to make plays. They're under a ton of duress, so they chuck the ball up. Do you get those interceptions because of that? And of course, that's in play. But if you don't have as much pressure, is he going to have that same level of impact? That's how I prefaced the question. And he said that he felt that James Bradbury actually benefited most from those 70 sacks. So just to put it in sort of perspective here on this discussion, is that a reason why Bradbury was able to have that incredible, insane year? Now, I don't know where he falls. It's somewhere in between the 2022 and the 2023 season. But the question really becomes, which one is he closer to? and he's probably closer to the I don't have that much left in the tank thing, because history tells us that as you get up there in age and as you log in a ton of miles, of course, you're going to break down and you can't keep up with these speedy guys and whatnot. But yeah, I'd imagine that Isaiah Rodgers, even coming off of a year where he wasn't able to play the sport, would be an improvement over James Bradberry. I hope so. I hope so. If not, you have some serious questions, and it comes down to, do you draft someone who can actually do it? Is 10.5, though, disrespectful when you see the other teams that are around them? And I guess the answer is no, because they clearly packaged a lot of these teams together where they don't think that anyone's truly going to run away with it. And if anyone does, maybe it's Kansas City. But is 13 wins when you're over under set at 11.5 really, truly, quote, running away with it? Like they saw what Kansas City was able to do last year. It took them a little while to find their rhythm. Some of the wide receivers were dropping passes left and right. But when it's go mode, some of these teams just know how to do it. And that's what you need to kind of separate when you do this. The regular season wins, the regular season grind, compared to what they can do when it's time to win games and it means more. So they just don't think that anyone runs away with it. And they see a lot of these teams, maybe 10 teams in the NFL, fighting around that 10 to 13 range. And if you're both strong and you're both very good, or not both, but if 10 teams are very good and they line up against one another, well, then they're going to lose. They're going to go head to head, one team win. If the Eagles play the Lions and they're both 10-win teams, potentially, one of those teams is going to get a loss because you're competing against one another. So that also maybe brings the win total down as well. And no one is by far and away better than everyone else. So is it disrespectful? No, I mean, the Eagles had one of the biggest collapse in history last season and brought back the head coach. So, yes, the improvement of Saquon Barkley, I think, should change the culture of the room. But you're also dealing with losing Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelce, losing the best center to ever play. I don't know how much they put into stock of other positions outside of maybe quarterback, because the line movement for each game, the money line, the spread, there's only a handful of positions that really sway the betting line that much in the favor of other ways. So, how much of a center or how much of one defensive tackle is going to go a long way. I don't know how they break that down from a mathematical standpoint when looking at these lines, but I'd have to imagine that losing the best center in all of football would absolutely be in play here, even if Cam Jurgens can step in. Now, BMV asks another question here. What are your thoughts on Devontae Parker? I've actually been one of the only ones that felt a little bit better about it than most, but then they made another signing at wide receiver. Quez Watkins is no longer here. I don't know if Devontae Parker wins the job. The name's escaping me. From the Giants, Eagles sign. It's escaping me. Not Devontae Parker. Who was the other one? From the Giants. Oh, man, come on. Does it start with a P? It starts with a P. Paris Campbell. Paris Campbell. Maybe Paris Campbell ends up winning the job, but it's hard to not have more success than Quez Watkins. So I think Devontae Parker as a third wide receiver, and you got to remember that these are the options that you have as an offense. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley, Jalen running the football himself. So after that falls at Devontae Parker or Paris Campbell. If now the number one corner, because everyone says, well, the separation with Devontae and this and that. Yeah, but the other team had their best corner up against Devontae in an offense that was led by Mac Jones. And at one time, there's a defensive coordinator who was just here named Matt Patricia. He was their offensive coordinator at one time. The guy's a bum defensively, and now he's running an offense with Mac Jones. No wonder it looked like crap. If now you have 5 other defenders focused on 5 other weapons, and now he's your 6th option, maybe even 7th option in some areas, the amount of pressure and the amount of focus on Devontae Parker is not there, or Paris Campbell. That's why it was extremely disappointing when Quez Watkins failed over and over and over again. So I believe that either Parker or Paris Campbell, whoever wins that job, can absolutely be a factor into them reaching this over level. 10-7 due to injuries that will occur, says Gerard. Injuries do happen. Injuries do happen. But over the last few years under Nick Sirianni, they had the first year, which was 9-8 in a playoff run. They lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the first round. Then the year prior, they won 14. And last year, they won 11. Oh, my God. I can't even believe I'm looking at that 11 number. It is absolutely disgraceful. 11. Think about that. Ew. That is so gross. But I'm taking the over. All right. A bunch of teams are going to be in the mix. I'm taking the over. I like the over at 10.5. They can have a bad year and still get that over. That's how much we are. I don't want to say spoiled because I'm not satisfied with seasons like last year, but there are teams that win 3 games, 4 games consistently, and they're pumped when they win 6. All right, but we have a different standard here, and I like it this way. There's no other way I would rather have it, but I like the over. I don't think it's too disrespectful. I think it makes a lot of sense because you have to separate regular season success to postseason success, and they're viewing Kansas City as one game different. You know what I mean? So they're in the mix, and they should be in the mix, and we'll see exactly where this goes. It's not useless to talk about this because we do understand the opponents. We just don't know exactly when they're laid out, but we know who they're playing. We know the teams that they will see. We just come on now. Let's use some brain cells here. All right, everybody. I appreciate. And by the way, you're acting like when the schedule comes out and you do your W's and L's, you're acting like you bat 1,000 on that as well. I mean, you could be more wrong. It's just fun conversation to talk about. There you go. Anyway, thank you guys all so much. I appreciate your support, and I will catch you all on the next one.